Imagine walking into a supermarket. You see beef, you see chicken, you see pork. Now imagine one more section. Hippo meat. Sounds ridiculous, right? But here's the strange part. There is nothing inherently impossible about eating a hippo. Humans have eaten them. The meat is edible. The animal is enormous. One adult hippo can weigh several tons. That means one animal contains an absurd amount of meat. So why isn't hippo meat everywhere? Why didn't humans turn this giant river animal into livestock? And why did we choose cows instead? The answer isn't what you think. It isn't because hippos taste terrible. It isn't because their meat is poisonous. And it isn't simply because they're dangerous. The real reason starts with a decision humans made thousands of years ago. A decision that quietly determined what would eventually end up on your plate. Because humans didn't domesticate every animal they could eat. They chose a very small group. And the hippopotamus was left behind. But why? Let's start with the obvious question. Can you actually eat a hippo? Yes. Humans have hunted and eaten hippos for centuries. In parts of Africa, hippo meat has been used as food. So the animal itself isn't the problem. There is no biological rule saying hippos cannot become meat. They already are meat. The problem begins before the animal reaches the plate. It begins with getting close. A hippo looks almost harmless when it is floating in water. It can even look strangely peaceful. But that appearance is misleading. A full-grown hippo is an extremely powerful animal. Its jaws are enormous. Its teeth are built for crushing. And it can become aggressive when it feels threatened. Now imagine turning that animal into livestock. A farmer doesn't approach an animal once. A farmer approaches it again and again, every day for years. That changes the equation completely. A cow can be handled, a goat can be moved, a sheep can be restrained, a pig can be raised around people, a hippo can make all of those tasks dangerous. And the problem gets worse when there isn't just one. Imagine 1,000 hippos. You need fences, you need feeding areas, you need water, you need gates, you need workers, and every one of those workers has to operate around several ton animals. Suddenly, the farm isn't just expensive, it becomes a safety problem. But danger is still not the biggest obstacle. There is something even more important. Food production depends on efficiency. A farmer puts resources into an animal. The animal grows. Then the farmer gets meat. The better that conversion works, the more profitable the animal becomes, and hippos are not designed for our agricultural system. They are built for survival in wetlands. They spend much of their day in water. They leave the water to feed. They need large amounts of vegetation. And they need space. Lots of it. A chicken can be raised almost anywhere. A pig can live in a controlled enclosure. Cattle can graze on managed land. Hippos need something much closer to the environment they evolved in. That makes everything more complicated. But then we reach another problem. Reproduction. This is one of the reasons chickens became so successful. They reproduce quickly. A farm can replace its animals rapidly. Pigs are also highly productive. Cattle are slower. But even cattle fit into a predictable breeding system. Hippos are different. A female hippo carries her baby for roughly 8 months. She usually gives birth to one calf, then she raises it. That means population growth is relatively slow. You cannot simply increase production overnight. And if you're trying to build a massive meat industry, that matters a lot. Because a meat industry needs a constant supply of animals, not occasionally, not when nature happens to provide them. Every year, every month, every week. That is what livestock gives you. Hippos don't. But here's where the story gets strange. Humans actually considered making hippos part of the American food system more than a century ago. The United States had a serious problem. Meat demand was rising. Cities were expanding. And Louisiana had another problem. Its waterways were becoming clogged with water hyacinth. The plant spread across the water. It interfered with transportation. It created problems for local communities. So someone came up with an unusual idea. What if an animal could eat the plant and then become food afterward? The animal they had in mind was the hippopotamus. Yes, hippos. The plan was to bring them into Louisiana, put them near the waterways, let them consume vegetation, then harvest them for meat. It sounds like something from a cartoon, but it wasn't. The idea was seriously discussed. It became associated with something called the American Hippo Bill, and suddenly the United States had a bizarre possibility: American hippo farming. The proposed meat even received a strange nickname: Lake Cow Bacon. Imagine hearing that in a grocery store today. Where's the hippo section? But the idea never became reality. And now we can see why. Because eating the animal was the easy part. Controlling it was the hard part. A hippo doesn't become livestock just because you put it inside a fence. And history later gave us a fascinating example of this. In Colombia, a small group of hippos was kept at a private estate. After the owner died, the animals were left behind. Some escaped, and then something unexpected happened. They survived. They found water, they found food, They found a warm climate, and they had very few natural predators. So they reproduced, then they reproduced again, and the population expanded. Today, Colombia has a growing population of feral hippos, and now humans have a completely different problem. The animals are no longer someone's private collection. They are living in the wild. They are spreading through the environment, they consume vegetation, they enter waterways, they produce huge amounts of waste, and they interact with native wildlife. Authorities now have to manage a population that humans accidentally created. And this is important, because Colombia showed us something. A hippo doesn't need a farm to survive. It doesn't need humans to manage it. It doesn't need our fences. It doesn't need our feed. Give it the right environment, and it can take care of itself. That is excellent for a wild animal. It is terrible for livestock. And that brings us to domestication. Domestication is not the same as taming. You can tame an individual animal. Domestication changes an entire population. Humans repeatedly breed animals with useful traits: calmer behavior, predictable reproduction, tolerance around people, ability to live in captivity. Over many generations, those traits become more common. That is how wild ancestors eventually became livestock. Cattle changed, pigs changed, sheep changed, chickens changed, hippos didn't. They stayed wild. And their wild behavior is exactly what makes them difficult to farm. A farmer wants an animal that tolerates human control. A hippo wants territory. A farmer wants predictable breeding. A hippo follows its natural cycle. A farmer wants efficient feeding. A hippo needs its own specialized environment. These aren't small problems. They're fundamental. And there's another reason: size. You might think being huge would make a hippo more attractive as food. More animal means more meat, but size cuts both ways. A larger animal requires more resources. It needs more space. It needs stronger infrastructure. It becomes harder to transport. It becomes harder to handle. And when something goes wrong, it goes very wrong. A chicken can injure you, a hippo can destroy you. That difference matters when you're building an industry, because industrial farming depends on routine, the same task, repeated thousands of times, safely, cheaply, predictably. Hippos are almost the opposite of that. They are powerful. They are unpredictable. They need specialized habitat, and they were never bred to cooperate with humans. So maybe humans didn't reject hippo meat. Maybe hippo meat never got a fair chance, because the animal itself failed the test that came before taste. Could we control it? Could we breed it? Could we raise it cheaply? Could we make thousands of them part of the same system? And the answer kept coming back: probably not. But there is another piece of this puzzle: culture. Because humans don't eat every animal that is edible, not even close. There are thousands of species that humans could potentially eat, but only a tiny number became everyday food. Why? Because food is learned. If you grow up seeing cows as food, beef feels normal. If you grow up seeing pigs as food, pork feels normal. If you grow up seeing chickens as food, chicken feels completely ordinary. But if you grow up seeing hippos as wildlife, eating one feels bizarre. The animal didn't change. Your perception did. And once a food becomes normal, an entire system grows around it. Farmers raise it, factories process it, restaurants serve it, stores sell it, people buy it, children grow up eating it. Then the cycle repeats. Trying to introduce hippo meat into that system would require changing everything: new farms, new equipment, new regulations, new breeding programs, new infrastructure, and, most importantly, customers. Why would people switch? What advantage would hippo meat give them? More meat. Cattle already provide plenty. Fast production. Chickens already dominate. Easy farming. Hippos are terrible at it. So the business case disappears, and that is why the supermarket looks the way it does. It isn't a perfect list of every animal humans can eat. It is a list of animals that fit the human system. That distinction is huge, because if humans had made different choices thousands of years ago, your dinner could look completely different. Maybe another species would be normal. Maybe hippo meat would be ordinary. Maybe the idea of eating beef would seem strange. But history locked in certain choices. And once those choices became industries, they became extremely difficult to replace. The hippo simply never entered the cycle. It remained outside, wild, huge, dangerous, and difficult to manage. So the answer to our original question is surprisingly simple. We never stopped eating hippos because the meat was bad. We stopped because the animal was inconvenient. Humans discovered that there were easier ways to get meat. Cows were easier. Pigs were easier. Chickens were dramatically easier. And once those animals became part of agriculture, there was almost no reason to start over. So yes, A hippo can become food. Humans have eaten them, people still eat them in some places, and for a brief moment in history, people even imagined building an American hippo industry. But imagination is easy, farming is hard, and a 3-ton wild animal is a terrible employee. It doesn't cooperate, it doesn't care about your business plan, and it certainly doesn't care about becoming your next steak. Maybe that's the real lesson. Humans didn't choose the animals on our plates simply because they were delicious. We chose the animals that could survive inside our system. The hippo couldn't. So the next time you see a cow, a pig, or a chicken, remember something strange. Those animals didn't just become food. They became partners in a system humans built over thousands of years. The hippo stayed outside that system, and after all this time, it is still one of the largest animals we could eat, but one of the least practical animals we ever could have farmed.